Last night, mate, a couple of things really jumped out at me. Your show on Fox Sports were, number one, Campbell Graham. What a great guest. And number two, Tony Harrison. Far out. How on earth did you control that?
He is a class act, Tony Harrison. They came in before the show. He had a couple of mates and his manager, and they came in and they're like, "Hey guys, how you doing? And really appreciate you having us." We're like, and they're all Detroit boys, Detroit, it's Floyd Mayweather territory, Tommy Hearns. It's a tough and rumble place, but they were just great guys. And they grabbed Liam Alexander, Brandy's young bloke, who's a producer on the show, and said, "Could you sit out with us out here in the green room and just sit and explain the show to us?" And he said, "God, they were good guys." And Tony Harrison was, talking. He was a real character on air, but off air, he was just a really nice, classy guy. And I spoke to Matty Rose about a week ago. They had a bit of a face-off before Creed 3. And I said to him, "Geez, Tony Harrison," I said, "Matty, I've seen him interview." I said, seems like a real classy, good guy. And Matty laughed and said, yeah, he is. He said, "That's why we're not having anything to do with him." He said, "Because he's an easy guy to like." And Campbell's just a great guy. The South Sydney blokes, and I think it's a byproduct, Matty, from having Wayne for a few years. They're just a really relaxed, easy-going bunch of blokes that are really easy to like. And Campbell's a terrific fella.
He was fantastic and held his own on that couch, no doubt about it. Who was your standout player, Matty, from round one? I mean, some outstanding first-up performances, but who really stood out for you?
Look, Daly was fantastic. You had guys, a few of the Rabbitohs players. Lachlan Ilias was absolutely superb. I'm sort of leaning his way a little bit. Felice, of course, we spoke about what Felice did. I'm going to go a little bit left field. I tell you, I'm going to go Adam Reynolds. Right? Yep. Adam Reynolds put on a masterclass in wet conditions. I think he showed everyone how to play wet weather football. It was what, Matty, it was what he didn't do. Like watching the Panthers, I thought the last two games in wet conditions, the Panthers have just tried to force their football, where Adam you could see him just relaxed. He didn't force the attack. He did less, and he built all their sets of six up to tackle 5 and 6, where he took control and just would guide put the right kick in at the right time where the ball needed to be. And in the last 15 minutes, he guided them home. Some really clever kicks. He did a challenge, which they got the ball back, and then kicked the field goal, which proved the difference. So, yeah, a little bit like Ilias, fantastic. Felice, brilliant. Daly Cherry Evans, a hat-trick. Couldn't have done any more, but I'll just go left to centre. I'll say Adam Reynolds.
Adam Reynolds got 3 points in the Dally M count from round one. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a bit of a change this year. So we've got 2 judges per match. They'll remain anonymous, but they are ex-players. And you can now get a maximum of 6 points instead of the 3. And those who got the maximum, Harry Grant got 6. Charles Nickel-Klukstaff got 6 in the match against the Knights. He was absolutely outstanding. DCE, as you mentioned, got 6. Lachlan Ilias. Marshall King got 6 as well. But Adam Reynolds got 3. Now, just on that, the Dally M judging, I think it's great that there's 2 judges having a look at each match. There was a little bit of discussion this morning on the Brecky Show between Brandy and Michelle Bishop whether or not you need a judge at the game, or is it okay to be judging, say, sitting at home or in a bunker style scenario and watching it on the box? Does it matter to you?
I would say no. I think at home, as far as who are the standout players, you get a better idea probably at home. I prefer to watch, if I'm going to analyse the game, holistic, saying, righto, how teams are playing, how they're setting up, I prefer to watch it live because you've got the wide shot continually. But television is better to just sit there and identify and go, man, he was the best player, because you've got the replays and so on and so forth. And there's other exceptions. I mean, I was sitting watching live the Manly, and it was clear cut. Daly Cherry Evans was the best player, 3 tries, and Olakawatu and Tommy and so on and so forth. But I think for a judge it's at home. I mean, I like the fact that it's gone anonymous. A bloke said to me yesterday, it's wrong. They should be held accountable. I said, well, that's the problem. is that sometimes they ask people to be judges and they do it in good faith, and then they just get absolutely hammered because people don't agree with them. And pretty thankless jobs. I really like the system they got at the moment with 2 judges. I think. I think it's terrific. I really like the concept.
Points from the opening 12 rounds will be in the paper every morning on a Monday morning in the Daily Telly. I agree. I think anytime you can remove the responsibility of, say, commentating a match, it's very hard to commentate something and judge it at the same time.
Yes.
No matter how good you are. And I've been in this position, mate, in supercars where we had the Barry Sheen medal. And when you're the play-by-play commentator, you see and hear and feel everything, but you don't necessarily absorb it at the time because you have a job to do. And I remember walking away, mate. Seriously, I remember walking away and having the hardest part of my weekend was to try and figure out a 3-2-1 because so much goes on and you're in charge of so much logistics, if you want to call it that, around your commentary and getting to breaks, all that kind of stuff. It's the last thing that you want to think about.
Absolutely. And what about the old days of the Rothmans medal, which was done differently, where the referees did the 3-2-1? I mean, the referees, imagine how difficult that was. And there used to be the old argument, there was a couple of players that won Rothmans medals, and people would say, fellow players would say, that what this bloke used to do, he used to go up after the game and shake the referee's hand, and he used to get preferential treatment. But imagine how hard that would be, refereeing a game. Then afterwards they say, right, who are the 3 best players on the field? If you're doing your job properly as a referee, you don't know.
No, that's right. That's right. And the last thing you want is all these players coming up and shaking hands, like, get off. And that goes back to the days when referees didn't call players by their names either. Now it's
that's right.
First names, second names, nicknames and middle names. Right, let's get your Matty's take on the match-by-match setup from round 1. So Storm defeat the Eels to start it off on Thursday night. It was 4 points in the end. It all comes down to Harry Grant taking the risk that a coach like Craig Bellamy gives him the freedom to take. A couple of things out of this one. The Cameron Munster situation, do you reckon they win if he doesn't come back on the field with that injury?
No, they don't. They don't win. That was... Look, I actually expected Munster to come back. There's certain injuries, Matty, where as long as you hear, okay, you can't really do any further damage, you get, let's go on. Let's go. Injuries to a certain extent, Matty, above the waist, a lot of times you can kneel them and get on with it. It's the ones like, torn hamstring, quad, ankle ligaments. They're the ones you can't return from. But, of course, he's having surgery. He's going to be out for a few weeks. But, no, they don't win. Parramatta win that game if Munster doesn't come back.
If they end up down the other end, if Harry Grant doesn't score that try, if they end up down the other end, what's the X-factor play that Mitchell Moses needs to put on? And do they have it in him, the Eels?
I think they do. I think that the more pressing point, Matty, is that for players with so much experience like Josh Hodgson, Mitchell Moses, and player with the class, and Gutho, throw that in as well, but also Dylan Brown, to say, righto, boys, we're up there. We've got field position. Taking that 1 point should have been just straightforward. Right, a couple here, work towards the post, buy yourself a bit of depth, grab the point. Like, Cooper Cronk was genius at it. Cooper, again, very pragmatic guy, and he just had a system all the time. Work to that point. This is where I like to take it. Take the point. Get it done. And they really blew it. The kicking on tackle 1. That's the thing that would have irked Brad Arthur, going, guys, mate, fellas, all our experience, and we can't get that done. Come on.
So Storm 16, Eels 12, Warriors 20 defeated the Knights 12 over there in Wellington. As I called this, Matty, I thought a couple of things. The green shoots are there for the Knights, some changes along the way, but you look at the Warriors and you know what? They physically, mentally, and now with their playing style, don't look anything like the Warriors that we used to see. Jackson Ford, terrific. Mitchell Barnett, massive game. Nickel Kluchstaff, a huge game as well. So probably the best thing for Warriors fans is they don't look like the Warriors of old.
Yeah, and you know what they're getting, Matty? They're starting to get a little bit of that old Warriors, Auckland Warriors and New Zealand Warriors DNA. When you used to play the Warriors, you would literally put a circle around that fixture and you'd say, that's going to hurt. even if we get the 2 points, we're going to go over there. They're going to play a really physical style, and it's going to be tough. They're going to be a tough team to beat. You're going to pay the price for your victory. And they'd gone away from that. They became diet Aussies. Playing a lesser version of this structured Australian side. They've always played their best when they've established their own style, and I see them getting back to that. Their young forwards are playing a lot of great power football, and although they've got an Australian coach in Andrew Webster, you can see that's where he's pushing them. And I love to see the Warriors do well. They're when they start to play good football, they're one of my favourite sides.
Yeah, they didn't look like the Warriors of yesterday, but they look like the Warriors of yesteryear. You're right, going back to that we're tough DNA. Broncos 13 defeat the Panthers 12. The Panthers obviously look different as well. How much, Matty, are they really going to miss Api Coruscant, Viliame Kikau in particular?
Yeah, look, Matty, in the short term, it's going to be pretty significant loss until the other players start to bed down, and until Matty, they actually I'll use one example here, like Jerome Luai is used to having Kikau alongside him, so he would have played a style of football that suited him, and also Kikau working that combination and having that big body. Jerome will have to go back to the drawing board a little bit and say, okay, got a new back rower here. How do we make this work? That's going to take a little bit of time. Look, Penrith will be in the final four. They're going to be there towards the end, but they've just, like I said, in their first two performances, St Helens and against the Broncos, they've gone out there and they haven't played the conditions. They've tried to force their style of football into conditions that didn't suit.
If defence is an attitude, Matty, has Kevy Walters got a lot to be happy about with the attitude of the Bronx?
Yep. You measure desire by defensive energy, and they've got plenty of desire.
Manly 31 defeat the Bulldogs 6 on Saturday afternoon. A big crowd at Four Pines Park at Brookvale. I thought one of the key things here, aside from the fact that the Manly machine looked completely different, remember in the pre-season games, Daly Cherry Evans not cited, didn't play a second in cotton wool, and he comes out here and puts on an absolute show. It was almost like they were kind of trying to fool everyone into the old guess who isn't here, and he arrived big time.
Yeah, he did. And what that shows as well, their trial form was so good, and then to put it into round one, to play that way in the trial games, and okay, granted, it is trial football, but they beat some, couple of good sides, and with young guys, it shows the system's right. It shows that the way Anthony Seibold's got them playing, and his assistants, Shane Flanagan and Jimmy Dimmick, what they've gone about is the system's right. That the players believe in what they're doing, and then Daly coming back into the side and Tom coming back into the side, that's the bonus, right? You get yourself into trouble when you start to look at your top players and you rely on them so much. The bottom line is you have to have a system of play that can stand up when the stars aren't there. The stars are a bonus.
If Bill Knowles taught anything to Tom Trbojevic, you get the feeling that he taught him that he doesn't need to be in seventh gear the whole time. And there was a couple of times there at the back end when the game was done, and he just knocked it back a couple of gears. The Bulldogs, your early take on them then?
Oh, look, they'll get there. I think that, they came up with a lot of errors in that heat. Like, honestly, the heat, watching both sides in the last 10, 15 minutes, they're just completely out of gas. And the fact that Manly had a lion's share of possession, that made it really hard on the Bulldogs. Again, it's combinations. I think Matty Burton probably tried to go out there and play too much like a playmaker. He plays his best when he's primarily a runner of the football. He'll be better for that run. Reid Marnie was sensational. Reid Marnie, I haven't mentioned him. He was close to the best player in the field. He was that good. Every time he took off, he created something. I've rarely seen such a great performance for a side that was so badly beaten.
The Cowboys defeated the Raiders by the single point. So Chad Townsend nails the field goal up there in Townsville. Scotty Drinkwater picks up from where he left off last year, and Ricky's got some questions. We touched on the Rabbitohs 27 over the Sharks and the performance 27-18 and the performance in particular of Lachlan Ilias. The Dolphins, of course, come out swinging. What a story, 28 points to 18. The one we haven't looked at is the Titans defeating the West Tigers yesterday, last night really at Leichhardt Oval. So another massive crowd there. But as you mentioned, David Fifita, 200 metres, one line break. A try assist as well.
Yeah.
What kind of season is he in for in 2023?
Well, I'm praying that Kieran plays 20-plus games, and if Kieran does that, then David Fifita's going to have a big season. And it's funny, you know, when players are on the final year of their contract, sometimes what happens is they tend to go up a gear. Necessity does that, but no, it's good to see. And Tino, man, what a player. Big Tino is great captain. Great that club, it deserves success. It's gone through some really difficult periods, and mate, they've got some really good young players. Semi Verrills is going to prove a really great signing for the Titans.
What about Appy Coruscant and the West Tigers? What has Tim Sheens and Benji Marshall got to do here? Appy played 46 minutes yesterday. No doubt he's going to be key to their thinking in this season. So how do you best use him?
Oh, look, I think with Appy, you make him the focal point of the attack. As yesterday, because he was underdone, didn't play trials, they started with him on the bench. I think that proved, in hindsight, a mistake, but that's, you know, you haven't got the benefit of that before a match. If they'd gone out there and all of a sudden blew him away in the last 60 minutes, people had said, oh, mate, what a genius move. Appy's got to be the focal point of the attack. With Brooks and Dewey, they've got to be secondary. Everything's got to come from Appy. It was funny because, Matty, you've got to be really careful with your trial games. They were awful against the Warriors, and that second game against Canberra, they spanked them. And I reckon sometimes when you have a trial performance like that, suddenly in the next 2 weeks you get a little overhyped and you start to sit back and go, wow, here we go. Everything's in place. And it bit them a little bit. So I think I'm expecting a big performance from the Tigers this week as they take on Newcastle at Leichhardt.
This is the Roundup across the SEN network, 0457 736 736. That's Matty's take on round one of the NRL Premiership.